The day. The Rams carry the weight of their city when they face the Eagles. Then it's a clash of MVP caliber quarterbacks. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. SportsGrid has you covered all day. Starting at 8 a.m. with FST for daily fantasy lineups. Lock in your picks with Pro Football Today. And stay dialed in with real-time betting on in-game live game day. Only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid. The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl. But the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with Pro Football Today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day. Only on Sports.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Today is Thursday, getting you ready for the big games in the NFL and college football as well. Also, the NFL coaching carousel continues, getting news, notes, and information as far as the people who are being interviewed for some of these jobs. So stay on the grid with that as well. We're also going to hit on some college basketball, some results last night, National Basketball Association with Gilbert McGregor from Sporting News, and also Brady Kannon weighs in on the upcoming games in the NFL, tells you potentially who you should take against the spread for the divisional round this weekend. But we begin with some breaking news from the world of Major League Baseball. It will be a sad day for the game as one of the most iconic broadcasting figures in the history of baseball has passed away. Bob Uecker, a longtime broadcaster for the Milwaukee Brewers, I believe close to 50 years as broadcaster with the Milwaukee Brewers, passed away at the age of 90 years old. Of course, Uecker was also featured in feature films such as that one, the movie Major League, also participated in the TV show called Mr. Belvedere for many years, and was a player with the St. Louis Cardinals and Brewers as well. One of the most beloved figures in the game. Constant good things said about this man through the years. Very fortunate to have met him as a broadcaster when he visited South Florida with the Brewers when he used to go on the road many years ago. So rest in peace, Bob Uecker, and condolences to the Brewers family as well. All right, now to some other news, and let's get to some college basketball here. In this new world of paying our collegiate athletes, we're going to continue that, and that's a good thing. This time it's going to be in the Women's College Basketball NCAA Tournament. It was announced unanimously by the NCAA membership that it's the final step for a pay structure for women who are playing in the March Madness tournament after the Division I Board of Governors voted unanimously to do it. In the first year, $15 million is going to be awarded for the teams out of this new fund. That's 26% of the women's basketball media revenue deal. So that's good news. And then in year two, it would be $25 million and can grow from there. So college athletes continue to be paid. In this case, it will be the women in the NCAA tournament. And we have a statement also from Paige Beckers, who says that just for women to capitalize on what we brought to the sport and what we do just for sports in general and entertainment, just to be able to be part of that, we're extremely grateful for. Good news for women athletes and collegiate athletes as well, for those kids who are growing up wanting to play college hoops or even in the WNBA. You could get some money in advance of that by playing in the NCAA tournament. Meanwhile, keep an eye on the upcoming Super Bowl. Naturally, with the tragedy that happened in the attack in New Orleans, they're going to boost up security for the Super Bowl coming up in the second week in February. More than 125,000 people are expected to travel to New Orleans just to be around. No specific as to how many people will be on the ground during the week of the Super Bowl, but federal officers will be in line ready to bump up security in New Orleans for the upcoming Super Bowl. Also, a lawsuit has been filed by people who are very upset in the city of Cleveland with this potential stadium move that they want to move out of the county that they're currently in. In October, the Browns announced that they informed the city of Cleveland of their intentions to build a $2.4 billion state-of-the-art stadium and entertainment complex in Brook Park, which is 15 miles south of Cleveland. So naturally, the folks in Cleveland don't want that to happen. They want to keep the Browns at home. Needless to say, the saga continues with the stadium all over the country. All right, Jim Harbaugh with some medical issues. He's going to have cardiac ablation and hip replacement surgery. You may remember that Harbaugh left the Chargers Week 6 game against the Broncos. He had a flare-up with an atrial flutter, and he's going to get that all fixed up in the offseason. Should be completely fine for next year. Also, Deontay Johnson, I was wrong. I said Deontay Johnson's time in the playoffs was over. He's back. Now he's with the Baltimore Ravens. So needless to say, this move does not count for the rest of the postseason. It's a future move. So he'll be officially part of the Ravens in 2025 for their next season, but not for this postseason. The contract officially goes into effect on February the 10th, which is the day after the Super Bowl. If you're paying attention and keeping track, that's what that is. All right, also Aaron Glenn, he's doing the coaching circuits, being interviewed by a number of different teams, and certainly is expected to be seriously considered as a head coach in this cycle. Glenn talked about the possibility of that happening, saying that he's not just a defensive wizard, he also can coach anything you need.
Well, I don't know if that's truly accurate. I can just go off the top of my head with Bill Carr, Mike Tomlin, Bill Belichick. That's won a ton of Super Bowls as a defensive coach. And here's the one thing that I would say about myself. I'm a coach. I just happen to be on defense. I understand the offense just as well as a number of people. So if you're going to hire me, you're going to hire a coach. You're not going to hire a defensive coach. I'm going to talk to the offense just as much as I'm going to talk to the defense.
If Bill Belichick is planning on getting back into the NFL coaching circle, his moves don't indicate that at all. He's hired 2 new coaches to his staff. This time it is Mike Priefer and Will Friend. They head to North Carolina. Priefer was a special teams coordinator for the Chiefs, Broncos, Vikings, and Browns. Friend worked last season as Western Kentucky's offensive coordinator. North Carolina quarterback Jacoby Criswell entering the transfer portal. He has 1 year of eligibility remaining. And also Tennessee's defensive end James Pierce Jr. has declared for the NFL draft. He projects as the number 3 outside linebacker prospect for the upcoming draft behind Abdul Carter, who's expected to be not just a first-round pick, but maybe a top-5 pick, and Georgia's Michael Williams. Pierce finished his Tennessee career with 19.5 sacks. All right, on the college hardwood, last night, the battle between Iowa State and Kansas wasn't much of one at all. In fact, Kansas went to Ames and clobbered the Cyclones 74-57 the final as they pick up the easy victory last night. Curtis Jones had 25 points in the game, and right now Kansas is in the driver's seat. Probably going to swap top 25 positions would be my guess next week. TJ Olserberger, the head coach of Iowa State, simply not pleased with the outcome, especially trying to be boring, and it ended up being really boring.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a long time about the everyday habits and the consistency of doing the same thing every single day. We aim to be the most boring team in the country in terms of shaking things up and changing things, and our guys are in the mindset of, you know, they know what's coming at them every day. They know that we're going to be demanding and there's going to be a high standard. And that's not predicated on one individual. It's a collective effort from the team. And I believe our guys are confident in that and they believe in that. And so whether it's, you know, Demarion, what a great job he did stepping up. There's going to be more adversity that comes at us one way or another as we move forward. And if our guys, we're going to demand that they continue to keep their focus on the next day and the next opportunity. And that will allow you to play the level of those habits, you know, when the most challenging moments show up.
Let's get to some more college hoops. Number 6, Tennessee. They overcome a slow start. They end up beating Georgia. ranked in the top 25 this week, probably not next week. 74 to 56, the final there. Also, Jordan Pope in Texas end up staving off Oklahoma. The Sooners were 2.5-point favorites, so Texas gets a little underdog win there. And also, Rashul Diggins, UMass, they get a 3 overtime win over Fordham. Wow, 120 to 118, the final there. All right, in the National Basketball Association, Karl Anthony Towns has a bone chip in his thumb. Bad news for the Knicks. He didn't play last night. 125 to 119, an overtime win over the 76ers. Jason Kidd says a non-call on a goaltend cost them the game last night. We'll see if he gets fined for that comment. The Pels win last night, 119 to 116, and the LA Clippers break a franchise record in a 59-point rout of the Brooklyn Nets, who have struggled this season, to say the least. How about this final? 126 to 67, the final score there. So that's the latest in the National Basketball Association as well. But recapping our top story of the day, Bob Uecker passes away at the age of 90 years old. It's one of those iconic figures in the history of baseball, who's been a broadcaster, a pitch man you may remember on television, in beer commercials, and certainly one of the most iconic baseball movies of all time, the movie Major League. Bob Uecker passes away at the age of 90. We'll take a quick time out here on NewsWire. When we come back next, Gilbert McGregor joins us courtesy of Sporting News. We'll go over some of the latest in the NBA and start off with the Rockets-Nuggets game. And don't go away, more NewsWire straight ahead.
This Sunday, the Rams carry the weight of their city when they face the Eagles. Then it's a clash of MVP-caliber quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. SportsGrid has you covered all day, starting at 8 a.m. with FST for daily fantasy lineups. Lock in your picks with Pro Football Today and stay dialed in with real-time betting on in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl, but the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with Pro Football Today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Let's get it to the NBA and check in with Gilbert McGregor from Sporting News. We'll go over the latest, everything happening in the association. Gilbert, great to have you back here on NewsWire. Let's do some recaps and then some look forwards here. Let's start off with one of the games last night, 128 to 108, the final between the Rockets and Nuggets. Huge game last night for Jalen Green, who had 6 3-pointers as Houston, one of the surprises, I would say, of the NBA season. And, they've been in the doldrums, as we would say, for a few years. They're pulling themselves out of that, Gilbert, in a big way.
Absolutely, Craig. Houston is definitely at a great stage of the rebuild or retool of the franchise that they've had. They've drafted well, Alperen Şengün, Jalen Green with a big game last night, signed free agents like Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks, and it's starting to show in the product. Credit also to head coach Ime Udoka for giving this team an identity that they stick with. Amin Thompson, another great player for this team, was really stepped up at this young stage in his career. But I think the big thing with this Rockets team is just taking steps the right way. They've been mentioned as far as getting a big star on the trade market, but Jalen Green could be that guy. You talk about his big numbers last night. A reminder, he's only 22 years old in his fourth NBA season. So if he can leap into becoming the player they thought he was going to be when they drafted him, then the Rockets have a really, really bright future ahead. They have so many assets and so many options. So it's a good time to be a Rockets fan for sure.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the Rockets are going to have to get it going pretty quick here. It looks like they play the Kings tonight. They are 4-point underdogs this evening. Sacramento has been sort of up and down, Gilbert, for the most part this season. Tough team to predict against the spread. Total of 226. What do you make of this back-to-back? Can the Rockets get it done?
Few things at play here. I think any back-to-back involving Denver is tough. Not only do you deal with the altitude in Denver, but I've heard it's a really long trip from Ball Arena to the airport. So that could have a factor in how fresh the Rockets are when they come out against Sacramento. Now, the Kings have won 7 of their last 8. They fired Mike Brown. Doug Christie has taken over. Interesting to see somebody that we followed throughout his playing career as a head coach now, but he's getting through to this Kings team. So I like the Kings tonight just because they have that rest advantage and they played really good basketball under Doug Christie. They're back home after a road trip. So I'm going with the Kings in this one.
All right, Kings it is, minus the 4 points, says Gilbert. Now let's go to the game between the Warriors and Timberwolves last night. Minnesota made it 3 down 4 with 1 second left. So naturally, this is a little bit further spread than it looks like here. But the Dubs hold on late. And, I mean, these are the games, Gilbert, that they were losing a lot early on in the season. So they finally pick up a close one here in Minnesota.
You know, they got the win, but I'm a little discouraged by how they got the win. They were up by as many as 24 points in this game. And this is a Warriors team who has really been searching for answers since that 12-3 start to the season. I'm on record saying I wasn't bought into how good they looked to start the year. And I think they've shown their true colors ever since then. Stephen Curry needs help. He still has a lot left in the tank to say he's about to turn 37 years old. They tried to make the move for Dennis Schroeder. They've tried to do some things, but it hasn't really worked. And there's not much left for this Warriors franchise to do. And I think that letting the team like the Timberwolves back into the game last night just speaks to the state of this Warriors franchise. There's a little bit of infighting going on. I think that everybody can feel the frustration going around them. So I keep an eye on what they have going on to say that they're 8-17 since their hot start to the season.
Yeah, and that's going to be the thing, is what the Warriors do at the trade deadline to stay involved in this. And the Western Conference right now just simply being dominated by the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're 33-6 on the season. Incredible. And there is Houston right there, too, with 27 wins, followed by Memphis, Denver, and then, of course, the Clippers and Lakers. Any team outside of OKC, do you think that they could take them down at any point? Because it feels like we're going to be headed toward the home stretch pretty soon here, Gilbert.
Yeah, I mean, with OKC, big surprise here. Health is the biggest thing for them. So if they don't have health on their side, you have to look at a team like Denver because they have Nikola Jokic. The Grizzlies have almost quietly been an impressive team. Ja Morant has been in and out of the lineup with various things. But as we saw last night, he is one of the most electrifying players in the NBA. And they do have a complete team in Memphis as well. And that's a team I could look toward making a deal at the trade deadline as well. So a lot of those teams in that 2 to 5 range, I look toward Memphis and Denver teams who have been there before and won in the postseason before as teams who could threaten OKC if OKC continues to run into health issues.
Yeah, and that's going to be the key for them. Now, the key tonight in the NBA is asking yourself this question, Gilbert. Is this a finals preview tonight? Some people think yes. Some people think, Cleveland, great regular season. What will they do in the postseason? They're at OKC tonight. Thunder -1.5. It tells you just how close these two teams are. Total of 232.5. Cleveland had that long winning streak snapped. They've started another, not streak, but at least they have their 1 in a row now against Indiana. Do they make it 2 tonight against OKC?
I do think the Cavs make it to tonight. I just mentioned the health and the Thunder, and we found out yesterday that Isaiah Hartenstein will be out for at least a week, and he joins Chet Holmgren, who has still been on that injured list for the Thunder since early November. So without both of those front court guys, we were just talking about this last week, it's going to be a field day for Evan Mobley and or Jared Allen. And with those guys setting the table, OKC only really has a chance if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has a huge game. If it's 35 plus, it's probably what will be required for him to have a big game, or for them to have a chance to win here. But I like the fact that the Cavaliers are able to go on the road. They have that front court advantage, and we just saw them take advantage of it last week. Now, Alex Caruso is back in the lineup, and Lou Dort made life difficult for Donovan Mitchell last week. But ultimately, it comes down to the front court, and Mobley and Allen should lift the Cavs over the top tonight.
Yeah, and certainly Cleveland with a win would give them their 35th of the season. Right now they're 34-5. The Celtics, meanwhile, are still the favorites to win the East, and that tells you, despite how good Cleveland has been, the belief is that Boston is playoff tested. The Knicks are 6-1. The Bucks are 11-1. The Magic having a nice season at 17-1. Indiana is 39-1, and then you have to dive even deeper past that to get into those play-in range games, like with the Heat and some of the other teams there. Would you take the shot here, Gilbert, on Cleveland to beat Boston if they had to play a 7-game series?
You know, such strange dynamics in the Eastern Conference right now, but the Celtics have looked bored, and maybe they hurt themselves a little bit and put themselves at a disadvantage this postseason, and the Cavs are a very difficult team to beat. So if anybody can do it, the Cavs could do it. You could find some value there. So if you really believe in what they have going for them, or maybe just disbelieve in the Celtics, it's worth putting a little bit there.
All right, fair enough, Gilbert. We'll catch all the action tonight. We got you down for the Kings, -4, and the rest of the NBA we'll recap next week. Thanks again for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Craig.
All right, Gilbert McGregor, great work over at Sporting News. Coming up next, we preview the Rams-Eagles game. We got Kevin Walsh to give us a full preview of the game. We'll also hear from Nick Sirianni. And can anybody stop Saquon Barkley? That is the test for Rams head coach Sean McVay. That and Brady Kannon and a whole lot more on this edition of NewsWire. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away.
This Sunday, the Rams carry the weight of their city when they face the Eagles. Then it's a clash of MVP-caliber quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. SportsGrid has you covered all day, starting at 8 a.m. with FST for daily fantasy lineups. Lock in your picks with Pro Football Today, and stay dialed in with real-time betting on in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl, but the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with Pro Football Today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
One of the great matchups this weekend in the divisional round will be the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Los Angeles Rams. Rams on a very short week, of course, playing Monday night, now having to travel to Philadelphia to take them on. And obviously the Eagles are favored in this one, but will they win and will they cover the spread? That is the topic that we've asked Kevin Walsh to dive into. It's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. All right, as I mentioned, here on the Sound Off, we have some of the best experts here on SportsGrid. In fact, you can catch Kevin and Joe and the whole gang this weekend. Ben, Pro Football Today, Saturday, Sunday, some special editions. Make sure you catch them this weekend. But let's give you a little bit of a taste as to what could happen this weekend. First, let's start off with the 3 p.m. game on Sunday and get a preview of the Eagles and Rams. Here's Kevin.
NFL playoffs continue the divisional round this Sunday. We'll see the 2-seeded Eagles host the 4-seeded LA Rams. And I got to tell you, the conversation around these teams coming in is a little interesting, to say the least. The Philadelphia Eagles, despite being the 2-seed, despite the last time they lost with Jalen Hurts playing in the full game was many moons ago. Okay, I think before their bye week. There's a lot of concern, again, around Jalen Hurts and the pass offense. And if the Eagles could possibly win a shootout, how could the Eagles possibly score, 37 points on this LA Rams defense, which they did this year in LA when they played the Rams? Saquon ran for a career best 250-plus yards, multiple touchdowns. There's a reason the Eagles are a big favorite this week against LA. We'll see if Hurts can step up, whose passing prop is just 20 yards south of Matt Stafford. Craig, it's back to you.
All right, thanks, Kevin. We'll catch more previews this weekend. Meanwhile, back in November, the Eagles beat the Rams handily. 37-20 was the final in that game. But how much can you actually take out of a game that was basically over a month ago? Game plans are going to change. Some of the personnel based on injuries are going to change as well. That was one of the topics that Nick Sirianni was asked by the media at his appearance this week.
Yeah, they're playing really good football. I think that was pretty obvious when we went in to play them last time too. They had won 4 out of 5 before we played them, and then pretty much have been undefeated since then. So they're playing really good football. Both offensively, defensively, special teams wise, and you expect that because they got good players. And I again can't say enough about this coaching staff. I really think that they have a really good coaching staff led by Sean McVay.
How about defensively? Anything tangibly that you've seen that shows the improvement since last time you guys faced off?
Anytime you've played a team as long ago as we played them, there's going to be things that have changed. And there definitely is. They do a couple different things on defense, making it hard on you, making it challenging on you to predict what's coming. But Chris Shula's done a really good job coaching the defense, and again, they got really good, really good players, and especially on that defensive line, it's a good front that's playing really good football right now. To say they've, exactly what they're changing, I'm not going to kind of get into that, but they obviously have some changes, just like we have some changes since last time we played them.
Maybe the biggest change is the emergence of Saquon Barkley. Don't get me wrong, he had a great year, but a phenomenal second half of the season. Virtually no team has been able to stop Barkley on the ground all season long, regular season or playoffs. That's been the key to success for the Eagles. How does Sean McVay stop Barkley from going off? That was the question asked to him ahead of the game this weekend.
Well, I think first and foremost, you got to give them credit. I mean, they did an excellent job. And then there were some things where we certainly could have put our guys in some better spots. And then there were some things where we misfit some runs. And then, the last one that he broke out, we were in a 0 blitz and he broke through the line of scrimmage and there's no one left and he's got the speed to finish. That's the thing that makes Saquon so special. He's patient. He hits you for a couple of those runs. But if he gets clean to the second and third levels, he's such a slash runner and he's got the speed to finish. That's why he's such a dynamic player. So I think our sense of urgency will be appropriate for the task at hand this week. And we love it and we're looking forward to it. But we got a ton of respect for this group. But there are ways that you have to be able to change up looks, because if they get a beat on what you're doing and you just sit in the same front structures, they will pound you and they will embarrass you. And so we'll have to do a great job, and that'll certainly be a major part of our focus and concentration.
Sunday, 3 o'clock Eastern, our coverage live here on Sports Grid of the betting aspects of all the games begins Sunday morning with Fantasy Sports Today. All right, real quick, one coaching note in the National Football League. Kellen Moore, who used to be the offensive coordinator for the Cowboys, who ended up leaving and now is maybe even potentially being considered as a head coach. He's going to do an interview this week, is being reported. So the Cowboys are speeding up their interview process by doing some interviews as well. Brady Kannon will join us. We'll go over some golf and some NFL after the break.
This Sunday, the Rams carry the weight of their city when they face the Eagles. Then it's a clash of MVP caliber quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. SportsGrid has you covered all day, starting at 8 a.m. with FST for daily fantasy lineups. Lock in your picks with Pro Football Today and stay dialed in with real-time betting on in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl, but the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with Pro Football Today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on Sports Grid. Big weekend ahead of the National Football League and also for golf. So we'll preview the American Express coming up this weekend. Let's bring in Brady Kannon, who's getting ready for a big weekend of golf and football. I mean, my gosh, Brady, this is a lot to absorb here with the NFL this weekend, some golf, and then the college football championship on Monday night as well. Thanks for coming on the show. And by the looks of it here, you know, rare do we have you on where it's not just picking straight sides, where you actually like the teaser game more this week, but it certainly seems that's the direction you're headed.
Yeah, I'm pretty much just going against the masses here. From what I can tell, it looks like the majority of the people are on the Kansas City Chiefs, which I can certainly understand. They've been a very public team for really the Patrick Mahomes era now. And we know the Detroit Lions have become an extremely public team, me included. I love this club, and I hope they make a great run. I hope they make it all the way to the Super Bowl. I think people really remember what they saw last on primetime national TV with the Los Angeles Rams just dismantling the Minnesota Vikings. And we saw the Vikings really lay that egg 2 weeks in a row. And then finally, you have the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. And I think what most folks are seeing is the Ravens look like the best team in the NFL. And I just kind of wanted to go opposite. And I think I'm on the right side. My numbers say so. I think the Chiefs line is too inflated. It was just a few weeks ago that this line was 3.5, and now it's 8.5. And, you know, there's certainly some adjustment for the bye week. Andy Reid off of a bye, players getting healthy for Kansas City. But it seems like there's also a big adjustment just for people or the odds makers figuring that Kansas City can flip a switch when it becomes playoff time and they deserve another 2 or 3 extra points. I think this line should be more like 5.5, maybe, somewhere between 5 and 6. 8 to 8.5 feels like a lot to me. The Detroit line feels like a lot of teaser protection. And then the Los Angeles Rams, Craig, a terrific story. A lot of people talking about Sean McVay as maybe the very best coach in the NFL right now, and I'm not sure I want to argue with it. I think he's been just fantastic, and he may be able to pull another rabbit out of his hat here. But if you look at the Rams season, they had a lot of games where they had a completely emotional and physical draining game and then kind of fell on their face the next week. And I think that's what we may have in front of us here. With the Los Angeles fires and everything going on and being shipped out to Arizona and that rallying cry that they made and that effort that they put up against Minnesota to bounce back and now play an even better team and have to come out with that type of effort again, I think that's a lot to ask for Los Angeles.
It is. I like the ideas too. In fact, as we talked about Washington all season long, I think Washington's going to win this game this weekend, Brady. I think that is the big upset coming for me, at least. I know people say I'm too bold with it, but that's the deal here. Okay, so do you want to go to golf, or do you have any other NFL?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think you bring up a really good point there. Because of where the lines are this week, there's going to be a ton of teasers, myself included, but I kind of went the other way. With the way these favorites, the number of points that they are favored by, it's extremely attractive for, let's say, a 3-team money line parlay with the Chiefs, the Lions, and the Eagles, or a 3-team teaser, and you're basically teasing them all down under a field goal or close, or even a pick 'em in the case of the Eagles. You have to figure, you've been doing this long enough, Craig. One of those is going to upset the party, right? And in your case, maybe it's Washington. In my case, I tend to think it's going to be Houston. I do think the Eagles are going. I think you're safe there. If you're playing the favorite in the Eagles-Rams game, I think the Eagles get this one done, and I wouldn't be surprised if they won by double digits. And then the game of the week, Baltimore and Buffalo. I think you can tease whatever team is getting a point or a point and a half. Teasing that team up to plus 7.5, I think is a great bet, but I do believe Buffalo's going to win the game. If I'm looking at a dog to win outright, I think it's going to be Buffalo, and I think Houston has a chance.
Yeah, I mean, Sunday night's game is going to be one of the, we hope it's going to be one of the more epic games we've seen in a long time. To me, that's just one of those where you have an opinion. Very hard to throw facts out. Anything else except for these two teams seem to be dead even going into that game Sunday night. Okay, so now let's get to golf. And Brady, we're teeing off right now here. So it looks like action is getting underway, but that doesn't mean that you can't still bet a lot of these items over on FanDuel or DraftKings. It's the American Express Tournament, and here are the odds for the favorites. Again, not all the big names playing in the tournament this week. We have Justin Thomas 12-1, Sungjae Im 14-1, Burns 16-1, Cantlay 18-1, Tony Finau 25-1, Tom Kim 28-1. Brady, everybody likes it when all the big names are playing, right? But Brady Kannon likes it when they're not. Like you always find these guys that are like, top 20 finishers that, the odds are much different, obviously. And maybe there is, from playing golf, maybe there is less pressure in some of these tournaments for these guys, knowing that the big guys aren't in it. I don't know.
Well, this is a very weird tournament. We go from 2 tournaments in Hawaii where we got a winner with Matsuyama at the Sentry, and now and those are very predictable tournaments. We see those results, be very predictable year in and year out. The Amex is a polar opposite, completely unpredictable. 4 out of the last 6 winners, Craig, have been triple-digit priced guys, 100-1, 300-1, literally 500-1 last year with an amateur winning a PGA Tour event for the first time in 33 years. You look at the list of these winners for the last 15 years of the Amex, and you hardly know any of them. So you really have to dig deep and pick some long shot type guys. I did land on a couple of the favorites you list there, and that's a pretty good bunch of a half a dozen, 6-8 guys in this field, some pretty good star power at the top. I took Tom Kim at 30. I think I got 31-1 on Tom Kim, and I took Kurt Kitayama, the UNLV golfer, at 30-1. And then after that, I just went really deep with some random guys that seemed to make sense for me, playing good golf, good off the tee, very good iron play. And this is going to be a birdie fest. The winning score proposition bet here in Las Vegas at the Superbook was 28.5 under par. These courses are pretty easy. It's a pro-am. They have to set the course up easy for these amateurs so it doesn't take 7 hours to play around to golf and that type of thing. But what you have in a birdie fest is you hope to have a guy that gets a hot putter for a few days. So I basically took ball strikers and with the hopes that the putter gets hot. Mac Meisner at 80-1, Jonathan Vegas at 90-1, Henrik Norlander at 150-1, and then Matty Schmid at 190-1. And you mentioned these guys. Matty Schmid, I think, just teed off, but the odds really haven't changed at this point in the game. We're only 5-10 minutes into the tournament. So if you're interested in betting this, you can still do so at pretty much the same prices. And what I said about this tournament being a real crapshoot, Craig, I've dumbed down the risk this week, and that's my public service announcement. I would not get too heavily involved here because this one's a real tough one to figure out.
Where are they going next week?
Next week's a big one, and I'm really excited. One of my favorite venues on the entire tour calendar, Torrey Pines in beautiful La Jolla, California, where they've held a couple of U.S. Opens. We should have a very good field there next week. I've played the course half a dozen times when I was going to college, so it's time to step up the game here with Torrey Pines and then Pebble, and hopefully, knock on wood, I think it's an underdog right now, but I don't know if we're going to be able to make it to Pacific Palisades and the Genesis Invitational at Riviera, but we'll see what happens with that one in late February.
Yeah, definitely. And then Waste Management Open, I know, coming up in February as well. I mean, the tour definitely speeds up right after this week. And the first time I've ever heard the name Matty Schmid. You gave me a Matty Schmid on the show, so I got to do my research after I'm done. I got to say, all right, Brady gave me a pick. I got to see who this person is. But I think we're all doing that here on the show. Thanks again, Brady, for the knowledge. We appreciate it. We'll check back with you next week.
Yep, you got it, my friend. Thank you.
All right, coming up next, Dan Fetes is all pumped up here. The big game this weekend between the Ravens and Bills is upon us. It is Sunday Night Football. It is the matchup of the year in the NFL. We'll get a preview of it next. Don't go away.
This Sunday, the Rams carry the weight of their city when they face the Eagles. Then it's a clash of MVP-caliber quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. SportsGrid has you covered all day, starting at 8 a.m. with FST for daily fantasy lineups. Lock in your picks with Pro Football Today and stay dialed in with real-time betting on in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl, but the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with Pro Football Today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Wow, is this a big game on Sunday night? And boy, is Dan Fetes ready for this one. And he joins us now. Of course, he covers the Buffalo Bills for Channel 13 in Buffalo. And I know that he's all pumped up for this matchup. And Dan, I know that, certainly Bills winning is better for you. Let's make that clear here. And for everybody watching, he wants to cover football. He wants to get another game out of this, maybe even an AFC championship if Kansas City was to lose to Houston. So I will start with this. Dan, as a somebody in the media who covers the team, do you think the Bills even are aware of the fact that they are now in insulted range as the Ravens are 1.5-point favorites to beat the Bills in Buffalo on Sunday night? Thanks again for coming on. Let's start there.
Yeah, thanks, Greg, for always having me on. Yeah, I think they're aware of it. They've done a really good job this year of kind of blocking out the noise, going back to the preseason when, Brandon Beane came out and said it was a year of transition, and they trade away Stephon Diggs. They lose Gabe Davis. Jordan Poyer's gone. Micah Hyde's gone. All of those things, and they kind of made this shift, and everybody thought they'd have a down year. The national media thinking they'd finish third in the division. The Jets better, and all of those things. Then what kind of shifted too is this MVP conversation, and Josh has done a really good job of staying above it and not really getting too involved in it. But his teammates have been very outspoken. And even Sean McDermott, a guy that whenever we talk about Josh, Sean's really good at saying, we'll say, what have you seen from Josh? And he'll say something about Josh is playing really well, but our entire quarterback room is really working hard. And the room as a whole, and he always makes these general statements, never wanting to point out an individual. He even said a few weeks ago, Josh Allen's the MVP. He said he's been around the league long enough, and he finds it hard to believe anybody's been doing more with their team. So to factor in the Lamar buzz, the MVP buzz that Lamar is getting, the fact that the Bills are home underdogs for the first time, I believe, in franchise history in the playoffs is wow. They're aware. They're aware.
Yeah, no, and the Bills have played some incredible games in the playoffs too, in the K-Gun years too, with that Marv Levy team offense as well. So I remember all of those, watched them all. All right, so that first matchup, the Ravens did win 35-10. So Dan, that tells me maybe this is partly the reason why the odds makers have this as Ravens as a favorite. But needless to say, anything can happen in one game. And so, I haven't picked my side yet in this one. I think it's just really too close to call. But how much do you put into the first matchup here? Because Josh Allen, post-game, on the field and in the media, did mention it a couple of times. I'm good at reading this sort of stuff as a reporter. It seems to me that they may use this thing going in.
Yeah, they're definitely going to use it. Look, they got walloped, and they haven't shied away from that. That game was over early on. Derrick Henry took the first handoff. I was in Baltimore, took the first handoff, and went 87 yards for a touchdown. And there was concerns going into that game. In that game in Week 4, it's a night game in Baltimore. They're wearing their black jerseys. They're nearly perfect since Harbaugh took over in that spot. I picked Baltimore in that game. I thought it was a bad spot for the Bills. But what you need to remember, and to zoom out a little bit, I'm not talking about the fact that September feels like forever ago in NFL world, but the Bills were without Terrell Bernard. They were without Taron Johnson. Von Miller was suspended. Taylor Rapp got injured early on in that game. They were pretty decimated. And that's why it was another factor of this is just a bad matchup. I believe I looked at now, there's 7 different starters that the Bills have now that are their starting team that weren't playing in that game. Now, yes, Baltimore's gotten a lot better too in that spot, but the team, we asked them kind of yesterday when we were up in Buffalo, just the fact of, hey, were you guys embarrassed watching this tape? Like, can you use that as motivation? And they're like, why would we be embarrassed? Like, hey, we had guys filling in. They played well. They did their best. Like, we learned a lot of lessons. That's what we've heard a lot is we've learned lessons. And Josh said that after the game back in Week 4. I know he talks about what he said, leading up to this game. Back Week 4, after the game, it was their first loss. The Bills fell to 3-1 on the season. And he goes, I'm glad this happened. He goes, I'm glad this happened right now. We're going to learn from this, and we're going to learn a lot of lessons. That's the vibe that this team has right now. It's not that they're embarrassed. I think they have a little bit of that internal motivation of, everybody thinks the Ravens are going to run for 200-plus yards on us again. But the Bills have been better their last 4 to 5 weeks against the run. The defense is averaging about a yard less per carry. And the Bills' running defense, which has been their Achilles heel, has been better. And while Bo Nix isn't Lamar Jackson by any means, what the Bills' defense was able to do and their versatility against the Broncos, I thought gave a lot of hope. And Rasul Douglas and some of these other guys in the secondary are saying, we're not even playing our best football yet. We're getting close, but we're not there yet. So I think there is some optimism about, hey, we're a different team. This was a long time ago, and we're in a better position this time around.
Yeah, I think so. And all that analysis, I think, is spot on and fair. Josh Allen this season had 40 total touchdowns. I just love to look at these numbers because to think that these were the numbers in the NFL years ago, they didn't exist. But 40 total touchdowns, 31 passing yards, 531 rushing yards, and 6 interceptions. And what I want to do is, rather than focus on this, I want to show Lamar Jackson's numbers here. So, Luke, let's throw Lamar Jackson on there. 4,000 yards, 900 rushing yards, 45 total touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Dan, why does nobody just come out and say what this should be when they make this announcement at the end of the season? Dan, this should be a tie. These are 2 incredible seasons for 2 quarterbacks who have played at the highest level possible. If either quarterback didn't play, both teams would stink. I don't care what anybody else says with Mitchell Trubisky or whoever the Ravens' backup is these days. I don't even know. Yeah. They would both stink because backup quarterbacks don't play well in the NFL. I know it doesn't happen very often, but to me, that is the easiest path to success to make everybody happy here. Just give it to them both, co-MVP.
Craig, don't you think that would just make everybody more upset? I don't know about you, but covering this team and on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel that we have, Ravens fans have pretty much infiltrated my social media and tell me all the stats, and they tell me about this, and they tell me about that. And what stinks, and you're right, is the fact of you don't have to knock one when you're complimenting another. I personally think that Josh Allen should win the MVP. I think he has done more with less. 9 Pro Bowlers for Baltimore, 2 for Buffalo, the All-Pros, things like that. There's not a wrong answer for MVP. It's just a matter of, do you think that Josh and his team overachieved this year, which I would give the small notch to? That's my only thing. This game's going to be incredible. Just buckle up. I think that's the only thing we're going to say. It's going to be about 0 degrees feel factor in the temperature, so it'll be a lot of fun in Buffalo.
Yeah, Dan's voting for Josh Allen. We understand it. We get it. Thanks, Dan.
This Sunday, the Rams carry the weight of their city when they face the Eagles. Then it's a clash of MVP-caliber quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. SportsGrid has you covered all day, starting at 8 a.m. with FST for daily fantasy lineups. Lock in your picks with Pro Football Today and stay dialed in with real-time betting on in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented 3rd straight Super Bowl, but the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with Pro Football Today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. As we get ready to wrap things up, was there a chance LeBron James would have ever tried playing another sport? How about this book that A.J. Brown was reading on national television? What ended up happening with that? And what's this battle between Lou Holtz and Ryan Day? I was not even aware that this existed. Frank tipped me off on this. It's time now for some last licks. All right, let's get started here. There was once upon a time where LeBron James, who was actually in a football commercial, how about LeBron James actually playing another sport? How about actually playing in the NFL? How about this quote? LeBron said, "The only time I've really taken playing football super seriously was in 2011 during the NBA lockout. I've had serious dreams about this all the time. And in my dream, the ball is never kicked off. It's like me in warm-ups, running routes, coming out of the tunnel. Then right when the game starts, I wake up. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a sign. I'm not supposed to be out there." But LeBron went on to say that during the lockout, he actually thought about it. Now, far be it from me to bet against LeBron James, arguably either the best or second best player and athlete in the history of the NBA. I grew up with Michael Jordan, so naturally I'm partial to him. But I got LeBron James right there at number 2. That's my ranking. I know a lot of people don't, but I got Jordan 1, LeBron 2. I mean, I watched Michael Jordan play, interviewed Michael Jordan, saw the playoff games in person that Michael Jordan played. I just got to be partial to that, even though I covered LeBron James championships with Miami too. I digress. Football? You're in the right place, man. Don't even think about trying to get on that field and take one hit to the head. Not a good idea. But fun to talk about, fun to think about. The good thing is that this never ended up happening. All right, now let's get to the story that made a lot of headlines over the weekend. For those of you who may have missed it, A.J. Brown, who had a tough game in their very easy win against the Green Bay Packers, fair to say, right, over the weekend, was caught reading a book. Did you see this on Sunday? If you haven't, then you just don't like sports, because this was so A.J. Brown was reading this book, Time to Finer Excellence. That was the name of the book that came out at the time. And A.J. Brown, needless to say, made this book the number 1 bestseller on Amazon. Number 1 bestseller, up 3,000% in terms of purchases. I mean, we have to find something that we can get just randomly placed on national TV to go up 3,000. I mean, can you imagine this author? Murphy is his name, Pat Murphy. He had never had anything like this happen in his life. Now he's the most popular author in the country. Just for one NFL guy, just reading a book. Crazy. All right, what's this battle between Lou Holtz and Ryan Day? I had no idea that this even existed. Well, apparently Lou Holtz went on national television a couple of years ago and said that Ryan Day's team, Ohio State, was soft. Right? The Buckeyes were soft. Buckeyes went on to win the game, by the way, and then Ryan Day went off on Lou Holtz in the press conference. Not even on the field, he went off afterward. And now Lou Holtz is back at it here, taking his next stab at Ryan Day. In fact, he went on social media. He said, "If Notre Dame wins, it's because we want to preserve Ryan Day's job. I was originally not going to be at that game, but I will be there in spirit and now with my body as well." Wow, Lou Holtz, you don't want to be battling with Ryan Day, man. Like, how old is Lou Holtz, Frank? He's got to be 80, right? At least close to it. Do we really need coaches fighting, and especially with one that's not even coaching anymore in college football? Lou Holtz, 88 years old? I thought 80. What does Lou Holtz think he's going to do? Honestly, what is he going to do? Ryan Day is just going to go boom one time. That's the end of Lou Holtz. Come on, not a good idea. Maybe verbally sparring is the way to go, but physically sparring definitely is not. All right, that'll do it for our show today, folks. Coming up at 3 o'clock Eastern, we got Pharrell Coast to Coast, but stick with us because Smiley's got a great golf show coming your way in about 2 minutes from now. Game time decisions at 6, in-game live game day, and then Gabe and Sports Rage tonight. That's 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Also, thanks to all of our great guests here on the show today. Thanks to Gilbert McGregor from Sporting News, Brady Kannon, and Dan Fetes. Also, thanks to our director, Luke, and for my producer, Frank, I'm Craig Mish. As we hit you back on tomorrow's show, it's a football weekend, so naturally we'll have previews of all the games on Saturday, all the games on Sunday, and all the games on Monday as well. And for those of you who want to learn more about our schedule and you simply don't have time to Google, here's an easy thing to do. Just take out your phone, scan this QR code. It's the SportsGrid app, and it has all the news, notes, and information, and also picks against the spread and gives you the full rundown and schedule and even video clips of all of the things that we discuss 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, exclusively here on SportsGrid. So with this edition of NewsWire in the books, I'll see you back here tomorrow morning as we wrap up the week, 11 a.m. Eastern, previewing all the football activity, as we would say this weekend. Have a great night, everyone. See you then.